There's one. Oh, that's a good one. Feels like a good one. Smoked it, man. You know, we're out here in Santa Margarita, one of my little home lakes I grew up fishing, and the water, I mean, I heard last week from some buddies of mine that the water temp was down in the, oh, that's a good one. Was down, or was up in the mid 60s. And now we've had some rain, some cold front. And the water temp right now is what, 56? And man, a few minutes into the day and look what we got already. That's a nice one. Look at how I ate that bait. All right, I'm gonna get this re-range out of his face. You know, like I said, I'm here at Santa Margarita, one of my little lakes that I grew up fishing. You know, and the fish are all in different phases of the spawn. There's some pre-spawn, like this fish here. There's some fish spawning, which I hope we're gonna see this afternoon. I'm gonna let this one go. Whoa, all right. Well, you know, like I said, these fish are in all three phases of the spawn. What we have here, where I caught that fish, there's a little secondary point, and I've caught and seen bedfish in this pocket and the next one, so it's a perfect little staging spot. But you know, we started off this morning with the re-range jerkbait, and that water temp dropped. We got a little bit of a breeze, so it's a perfect little bait to throw around, you know, those pre-spawners, and even post-spawners will bite it. And then, you know, as the day warms up, I expect to see some of those fish move back up on beds. I've already seen a few beds just going along the shore and no fish on them yet. But like I mentioned, you know, we've had colder weather, bunch of rain, you know, and the thing that trumps that though is that we had a full moon just a couple days ago. So these beds that are empty right now, these fish still know where they're at, and there's going to be some pushing up either this afternoon or tomorrow. The weekend's supposed to be really nice. So I expect to catch them on, you know, like shoot a little drop shot or a wacky rig, or, you know, maybe even a swim bait. If it gets kind of warm and still in the afternoon, maybe a gavacho, like a frog. You know, I mentioned a swim bait, but, you know, kind of keep your options open. This time of year, I have way too many rods out on the deck generally. Right now, I only have 4 or 5 or 6, but probably by the end of the day, I'll have like 15. Like I said, everything from jerk baits and crankbaits to little wacky rigs and things like that. So we're just gonna kind of fish around. That was a good way to start the day. There's some really good quality fish in here, so maybe we'll tangle with one of those 8 to 12, 13 pound fish that I know live in here. So just gonna keep going, see what happens. He's a little guy. Little guys. Still fun though. But no, that was on a, you know, little Nico rig, Jackall, Nico flick. Just a little guy. So we go from one extreme to the next. But I mean, that's kind of the deal, you know. What I kind of envision happening is you fish these secondary points and the little sharp drops leading into these spawning pockets, and then, like I said, you know, earlier, a lot of times these fish that are wanting to spawn, they're real kind of lethargic and kind of cagey, so sometimes you gotta finesse them, and I'm sure they're gonna get bigger than that. That wasn't even a scoreable size bass, but you never know. Now I'm gonna throw a frog and catch a giant. So kind of keep my options open, keep looking around. I've seen some beds. They're wanting to spawn. So eventually we'll come across them. As long as that mud hen doesn't get my frog. Turkey. There's one. Little guy, but still another one on the re-range. Kind of main lake. Fish is kind of, you know, that's another pre-spawn fish. And like I said, there's fish coming all different directions, going, coming. I mean, look how they're getting it. That's a good sign. That bigger one I caught ate the front of the bait too. So This bait's got 3 treble hooks, really, really sharp. You know, if I was in a tournament, I'd change out these hooks and put on some 4/0 or number 4 trocar trebles. But it's a good sign when they're eating the head of the bait like that. You know, the cool thing about this re-range, so it came out maybe, I don't know, a year or 2 ago, and actually fellow pro staff member Cliff Pace won a Major League Fishing event at Green Lake in Wisconsin. Whoa, they're hot, on the re-range. And I was like, man, you know, and here's the deal, when I'm fishing back east a lot of times, or, you know, on the tour, a lot of times you know, in the spring we're fishing muddier waters and stuff like that, and throwing a jerkbait has always been one of my favorite things here locally. Santa Margarita, Lake Lopez, Nacimiento, Lake Cachuma, and it's fun to get out here and experience this again. I like this water clarity. You know, they can visually see the bait. This here is like a ghost kind of blue back, really natural, transparent color. And the cool thing about this, so I'm throwing this on a 7'3". This is my signature series medium heavy action rod. It's got a really good parabolic bend, and it allows you to work that bait really good. And the cool thing about it, this bait right here is pretty light, but it's got this weight transfer system in it. So you can hear when I cast it, it wants to snap. And at first I'm like, man, did I break my rod? Did I hit a stick? And that's the weight transfer system. So when you go to throw it, the weight slides from the back of the bait to the nose, and you could throw it like a bullet. I mean, that thing just goes. Throw it on 12-pound Crank FC by Sunline. And the other really key component I feel is this is a new Daiwa SVTW reel. And it helps, you know, throwing these lighter baits, especially, we don't have much wind here, but if it was windy, it prevents a lot of backlashes when you're throwing these light baits against the wind or into the wind. So big ones bite a jerkbait, but I'm afraid that big bright shiny thing right there, they're gonna get off of this and start moving up on beds, and we're gonna have to kind of creep around and be ultra sneaky stealth and catch some big ones. I'll keep throwing this though for a minute. All right, well, kind of got the morning thing out of the way. Sun's getting up, water temp's warming up a little bit. It doesn't take much this time of year, but before I switch gears and start looking for them and do a couple other techniques and try to catch a big one, I'll talk with you a little bit about this re-range and how you fish it, you know, the scenarios and stuff like that. So obviously here I'm targeting pre-spawn fish here. And like I mentioned though, it could be post-spawn, but you know, when the water temp's super cold, like right here it's 56, but a jerkbait is really good, you know, shoot, high 40s up to mid 50s. I mean, super good. So a general rule of thumb though is you got to figure out the cadence that they want. So the colder the water temperature, the longer you want to let that bait pause. So, you know, if this water temp will say, let's just say it's 50, I'd throw it out there, make a long cast, you know, around an ambush point, a rock or a ledge or a stump or whatever. And you're going to want to get that bait down. So I'll pop it a few times, then I'll let it just sit there. And that's the cool thing with this re-range is it suspends. Wherever that bait stops, it's going to stay there until you move it. So it's keeping that bait in front of those fish. So if they're real lethargic and they're, you know, having a hard time committing to it, the longer you let it pause and sit there, the better odds you're gonna, you know, get that fish to eat. Now, because we're, you know, the water temp's 56, I think these fish want to react more, and so I'm going to kind of trick them. So I'll hit it a couple, you know, make a long cast, wind it down so I can get it down there 4 or 5 feet, and then I'll kind of do a little 1-2, let it sit for, you know, a second or two, 1-2. And you know, sometimes you'll notice that if they're biting it on that second twitch, you got to move it faster. Or, you know, sometimes it's a 1-2-3. You kind of got to experiment, let the fish tell you how fast to work it. Now, you know, I'm guilty of this, and I've been learning a lot about jerkbaits, especially post-spawn on into the summertime, into even the fall. Like I mentioned Cliff Pace earlier, he won that tournament in Wisconsin. Shoot, it was, I think, June, I believe. So, I mean, the warmer that water gets doesn't mean a jerkbait doesn't play. It's just your retrieve is going to be different. So, you know, when the water temp's warm, you want to really get that bait, you know, moving, darting around, make it real erratic, you know, a lot quicker retrieve. And a lot of times that's what those fish are feeding on, is those little shad or whatever you have in those bodies of water, alewife, or it really doesn't matter, but you're trying to get those fish to react to that. So, you know, it's not just a spring jerkbait type thing. I mean, it excels then, but throughout the year you can catch them. And you know, the re-range with that weight transfer system and, you know, the colors, I think is a really big deal. You know, I've seen it, like if it was 100% cloudy today, I'd be throwing that pearl white one that's like a bone white color. Some of that kind of darker water that makes some gold colors and some real kind of shiny, brighter finishes. So, you know, a good transparent color and something with some brightness to it, like I mentioned, the white, or I forget the actual name of it. I have it in my boat. They make like a real reflective type of bait where it's catching that sun and it's making that pop, and you're going to draw those fish from a long ways away. So pretty soon though, I'm going to have to put this down because I feel like, you know, we're going to have to go do something a little different and figure out what these fish are doing. Not much wind now. Clouds are obviously lifted. Sun's getting bright. I think some big ones are going to show up. So I'm just going to fish up here and see if I can catch one off this little knob, and then we're out of here. Dang, there's some deep freaking beds, man. Oh God, that one hammered it, man. It's a decent fish. Maybe it's not too late in the day. That one just about took the rod out of my hand. You know, and one thing too, I forgot to mention earlier, it's not that big a fish, but nice one is, you know, I just said that one just about took the rod out of my hand. Well, you know, the deal is when you're throwing a jerk bait like this re-range here, you got to have the right setup. So if you're throwing too heavy of a rod, first of all, you're not going to be able to cast this bait as well and work it. Jeez, I got them everywhere. So you want something that has some nice soft action, where when that fish eats it, it loads the rod up. But along with that, I have my drag kind of loose on this. You can see right here, that's fairly loose. I mean, especially for the way I like to fish, I like, you know, cinching down the drag. But when that fish ate me, if I would have had a real tight drag and a super heavy, or you know, a heavy action or a medium heavy action rod, not that parabolic bend, either one of two things would have happened. I would have broke them off, or I would have pulled those hooks away from them and not got that fish. So having the right setup is just as important as the right jerk bait. So again, nice loose drag. When one eats it, you can always tighten it or thumb them. You know, when they're making that dig by the boat, you can always thumb them, let line out. But I just like that drag just about that, just so I don't tear hooks up. Man, maybe it's not too late in the day. Man, they're starting to show up, man. Went through this pocket, throwing the re-range, seen several like cruising around. Some of them are on beds. There's a pretty decent one right here. They're really not, I had a couple followers back there, but they're already starting to lock down. I mean, they're not, at least right here, you know, I mean, this one right here, I just seen several back in here, little bucks. So they're already starting to come. So we're gonna have to, I think, do something a little different than throwing a jerk bait maybe. You know, boat positioning also is really, really key. You know, sometimes just a different angle, like when a fish knows you're there, if you can change the angle of where your boat's at, depending on where that fish is facing, a lot of times that'll give you an advantage, you know. I mean, I don't even have all my bed fishing stuff out yet. Another thing to do too also is, you know, try to keep your boat as far away as possible. You know, I mean, especially on these clear lakes, you know, they know you're there. Like I said, the more, gosh, dang it. And that's what happens when they spawn too. They just grab it by the tail and don't get it. But You know, right now I can't even see that fish, but I can see his bed. So a lot of times when you're just feeling for that bite, and then, you know, I mean, it kind of depends on how aggressive the fish is, what the mood of that fish is. I mean, sometimes they don't care if you're 2 feet away from them or 30 feet, but I always kind of like to start stealthy. That way, you know, sometimes you get them to bite a lot quicker than if you just charge up on them. And there's always like a spot on the bed where they particularly don't like stuff to be at. So a lot of times it's finding that spot, you know, and trying to leave that bait there. Oh gosh, dang it, he pulled off. I didn't think he ate it. I seen him swim up to it. I don't know if he's gonna come back. I didn't hurt him too bad. But yeah, a lot of times it's just trying to figure out, you know, the mood of the fish. That's the biggest deal when you're sight fishing is, you know, there's fish that are gonna bite, and there's fish that are gonna bite maybe 2 hours from then. And I've been guilty of it, you know, where I'm like, man, I'm gonna sit here and catch that fish, and they don't bite until they want to bite a lot of times. I may have messed that fish up. I don't even see him now. God. He's just a little guy. I mean, I just left that bait sit right there. He ran through the bed a couple times, kind of circled around. I just let that bait sit there. Tried a little Nico deal and really wasn't interested in that. And I'd rigged up a little drop shot. You know, I mean, everybody knows that's a deal. It just threw my worm off. That's not good. But not the biggest one, but it kind of tells me what we need to be doing. All right, so I was throwing that re-range down this pocket, had a little bit of shade, and I had a couple follow it, and then I started seeing a bunch. And you know, like I mentioned earlier in the vlog, that's a nice little male. I mean, fun to catch. Let them go, and they're going to spawn. Everything will be just fine. But kind of tells me that the amount of fish I've seen just alone in this one pocket here on beds, or I actually seen 2 or 3 pairs spawning right now. So I think they're kind of getting, the sun's out, the water temp's warming, they want to go and spawn. So we're going to kind of change up a little bit and do some sight fishing and kind of be a little stealthy. This time of year though, you know, everybody enjoys the spawn. They love looking at fish and catching them and stuff. And the most important thing is not to hang on to those fish. I mean, if you get a great big one, take a quick picture, let it go. I mean, the worst thing you could do is put them in your live well and drag them around the lake and do all that. Just get them back in the water immediately. That fish that I just caught is going to go back to that bed, probably call up a female, and you know, the cycle is going to continue. So that's the biggest thing. I know bed fishing, sight fishing is a big debate. It's part of fishing. You know, and I enjoy doing it. I learned a long time ago how to do it, and really spent a lot of time studying fish and their behavior. So we're gonna go see if we can find a great big one and probably pick off a few of these smaller bucks too, because they're just fun to catch. All right, so make sure and like, share, tag a friend if you like this week's vlog, and make sure and check back next time, and we're gonna catch a big one. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. Gotta get a new worm. Can't cast without a bait.